A few months back I've noticed that Icewind Dale received a discount on AppStore. It cost then only $2. Since I've never played the first game, I instantly grabbed it. For the record, I've never played any games of Baldur's Gate series. Well, I tried, but the interface of the PC version felt unreasonably wacky, so I couldn't finish it. In the same time, I've enjoyed both Fallout games and their interfaces with each fiber of my soul. In general, I am more of a fan of classical party RPGs and think that no one will ever outmatch the beauty of the second Neverwinter Nights game. Still, I do understand the premise of Icewind Dale. It's all about the combat and D&D mechanics. With this said, I thought that archaic interface moments, let's call them that, would be neglected in mobile format, so this was a perfect opportunity for me to try out the game. First things first, there were not even a single technical problem with this version, at least on my phone. The game downloaded completely fine, it didn't lag or crashed even once. Downsides lies on the other side of the coin, the platform itself. My main complaint is about, of course, the interface. Not so interface itself, but rather implementation it on mobile platform. As you know, Icewind Dale as a game requires a lot of micromanagement. You should manage your inventory, you should pick your targets and make active pausing. If you play it on the PC, you have a mouse and the space button, which make controls relatively simple. On mobile platform, on the other hand, not so. At first I picked normal difficulty, but even the first battle took me nearly an hour of time, because it's so unintuitive to play the game. To actually activate the pause during the battle, you should click an icon in the left bottom corner of the screen, and to choose your targets you need to touch them. We can zoom in and zoom out, but a lot of times phone refused to recognize my commands, so I was forced to press the same button or a character unnecessary number of tries before it worked. In other cases, the screen could go wild and send you to the other side of the map with no reason whatsoever. If on PC to give orders to all your heroes it could take you, for example, 10 seconds, so here it could take you up to 25. In this way Icewind Dale becomes harder and taking much more time to finish it. After some agonizing tries to beat the game, I've picked the easiest difficulty possibly. And I am deeply sorry for that. I should be ashamed even to upload such a content. Someone could even call me an IGN journalist, but my mental state is already on its edge. Also keep in mind that in general it takes up to 20 hours to beat this game. On mobile it could take you twice as much. At least I've got an excuse. The other thing is that you can zoom in the main screen, but we can't make the dialog window bigger, only expand it. It's not only harder to see Icewind Dale on mobile, but also could hurt your eyes. In this way I barely saw the text, should reread it, or needed to bring screen closer to my face. It seems bigger in the video on YouTube, but on the phone I could barely read it. In addition, your answers painted in red and looks really blurry. For the same exact reason, a lot of times I couldn't find an entrance to a cave or next location, so most of the game I played with the highlight mode, just to be able to see the needed objects of environment. Besides interface, tiny icons and all this stuff, mobile version is completely playable. As I've said, I haven't encountered any technical difficulties. The saddest conclusion of it all is that I can't see any other way how the mobile version for such type of games could be better. It doesn't matter which developer would make such port. Those games were designed for the PC platform. It was intended to be played with mouse and keyboard. I guess such versions mostly dedicated for the fans. We should be glad that this game could be played on the way to your job or studies. Despite all the downsides, mobile version is the only viable Icewind Dale experience on the road before Steam Deck will come out. When it will come out, of course. If you ask about Nintendo Switch, I think Steam Deck will reach much wider audience, but it's only my opinion. Now let's talk about the enhanced edition and in what ways it differs with the old one, because it also has its moments. What's new about it? In general, more content. We have a few new quests, some of which was cut from the original game. New items, a ton of new items, 2 expansions, 31 new classes and kit combinations from Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition, more spells, multiplayer and the new story mode difficulty. Looks cool, right? But not all of the changes were good though. In some cases I could call this edition lazy. In one level there is literally a hand icon from the PC version. They just screenshotted the environment and ported it to the mobile. It's just ridiculous. In addition, they've cut some of the characters' voice lines. Now they have fewer phrases. Still, overall, there are more positive changes than downsides. New players such as I am will not even notice them. I guess it could be somewhat significant loss only for the real veterans of this game. Now time for the graphics. I assume local visuals as pure art. I follow a lot of design pages on Instagram, yet still haven't seen such an amazing hand drawings as the ones from the cutscenes. And we even haven't touched the portraits. Don't forget about the locations, the city around the Great Tree, or hometown from the DLC, or dwarven rooms. They all could be taken as paintings. This game has an incredible art design. We could spend a solid half an hour just discussing how good this game looks. As for the enemies and characters, we've already seen this in other games. Goblins, orcs, trolls, giants, they feel similar, yet I don't know how to explain right how they supposed to look. What else I wanted to see in a D&D game? Flying unicorns, cyborgs from the future, monsters look right how they should, and that's the point. You could easily identify a mage from a warrior, for example. They are both functional and nice looking. Still nothing special. Surprisingly, but visual effects feel great too. Fireballs, ice storms, all the stuff. Basically, I have only one complaint about the graphics part that I've already mentioned. Interface. It's too complex and junky. Incredible number of spells with little tiny icons that I could barely see almost drove me mad. In all other terms, it's a typical Infinity Engine game, captivating and satisfying. As for the sound part, if it's not even better than the graphics, it's probably on the same level. We have a proper accompaniment of our actions, I mean inventory clicks, armor changes, all this stuff. The best thing that I really remembered, the sound of casting the magic spells. Environments though almost completely silent. Don't expect any atmospheric sounding. Bold of me to even ask about it, of course. It's like trashing Doom for not having ray tracing, but for me it's the music that does the trick. It's so good at making a proper mood that you will forget about emptiness in Sound Matters levels. I could even call it inspiring. It could really deliver you this D&D atmosphere. Long story short, a good stuff. Voice acting, on the other hand, made me laugh a couple of times. Not as it bad or something, rather absurdly cliched. You know, this deep, monotonous voice of the storyteller.
They say that history is the greatest of all teachers, and that tales of past deeds define who we are in the present, and what we shall be in the future. It is said that such tales shall, with each telling, illuminate us all with the light of truth.
Or the evil laugh of the bad guy.
He was banished back to the depths of hell, where he languished for a period of 100 years, tormented by the memory of his mistakes, and waiting for the day he would return to Faerûn and exact his revenge. Yes, yes!
I know this game is more than 20 years old, but I also don't say this is a bad thing. It's just funny sometimes. As I've said in the beginning, keep in mind that this game is old, and in a lot of ways Icewind Dale could be even archaic. If you grew up on more modern games, I guess it is going to be hard to appreciate this game sometimes. Still, I encourage you to try it out. Finally, let's talk about the gameplay. Honestly, Icewind Dale more feels like a real hack and slash game, rather than classical RPG. Perhaps the main reason why I wasn't able to play it properly on the phone is the kiting. You need to learn how to do this if you don't, in order to even win battles. Almost every big fight in the game couldn't be won fair and square. Most of the time enemies are tougher and there are a lot of them, so you need to kite a lot. 70% of the gameplay time you will be fighting, 20% you will sort your inventory, and the rest is other stuff. But let's start from the beginning. You know it's a legendary game when you spend half an hour rerolling character attributes on the creation screen. Yeah, I've seen more detailed character creation, for example in original sin, but as for party RPG, it's great. Gender, race, alignment and class. There are a lot of them. Dual classes, there are many combinations of them. Basically you could make any party imaginable, but I'd suggest you to take 2 fighters clerics, a wizard slayer, 2 mages and the thief. Once you're done, we'll spawn at the hometown. You'll get your main quest and off you go. Sometimes you can get side missions, but they are rare. The main reason why you should explore locations is items. Game rewards you if you do. We have kinda open world, and to move between locations we simply need to go to the edge of the map. The downside is if you'll go deep into the dungeon, you need to go all the way back, and sometimes it can take real minutes. Don't be upset though, most of the time you'll be fighting anyway. That's what Icewind Dale was created for. Process is similar. Each turn characters making an action. You can pause whenever you like. You could even customize when pause will activate automatically. Game allows gameplay changes. AI not that smart, in most cases enemies just rush into the closest character, so it's up to you how the fights will go. In Enhanced Edition, mages received enormous number of spells, so there are a lot of combos, buffs, curses, you name it. Range characters could be a thing as well. There are a lot of bows, crossbows, slings, types of ammunition, you have ability to select your targets, etc. At the same time, a huge downside in my opinion is that classical fighters are static. The only thing you could really change about them is their weapon proficiency. In all other terms, you're just pressing a level up button and that's it. There is no involvement either in gameplay or leveling system. Bold of me to ask something else of course, but still it could have been better. Keep in mind that some enemies do make a difference. For example, to kill a troll you need to use acid or fire. And how do I supposed to know of this if I'm not a D&D player? Anyway, I suggest you to use Google a lot, as I did. Another troubling moment is pathfinding. It's not good. With mouse and keyboard this is manageable, but on the phone not so much. After the battles you'll spend a nice chunk of time looting corpses, chests and locations in general. I'd say there are a lot of equipment, but usually it could not make a big difference of how do you approach your enemies. With that said, after a certain amount of time, when you will get used to game, when you will find the needed combinations for your squad, the game could become pretty monotonous. You'll see the most of the creatures, acquire the best armor, mages will learn all needed spells, and that's it. Fights will become the same, with exception of a few boss fights, where you need to approach them in other way. Luckily, it will happen closer to the grand finale of the main campaign. In DLC you could start over with a completely new squad. The story probably isn't the most cliched of all D&D games I've ever played. The game is all about the gameplay. There was not even a single unexpected plot twist or a special moment that I could care aware of. I can't even recall how many times I've seen similar story about evil wizards, brave heroes, powerful demons and saving the world from all those films from 80s and 90s, not even talking about the games. But here's the thing, as I mentioned previously, we should consider the time when Icewind Dale came out, summer of 2000, 21 years ago. Yes, now it feels rather naive at the very least, and next to the game even Cinderella's tale looks like a Tenet level of story. But if for a minute we mentally will go back in time, closer to the 2000s, where this type of stories wasn't used that much, where the games about World War II merely started to get popular, you'll see how pure the story of Icewind Dale is. With this classical deep-voiced narrator-type storyteller, it was a time when gamers could be impressed with a fairy tale, when the films had a relatively simpler scenario writing, and we were impressed by less visual effects. That were the times, yeah. People that were born back then and now are older than 20 have the best memories about those games. Call me nostalgic, but will you call Fallout 2 a game with a bad story? Or Baldur's Gate, for example? Perhaps not. Icewind Dale has almost the exact same story as these two games. It's the question of the time perception. Even if we do keep in mind the fact that this game is more than 20 years old, it's hard to expect a really good story from a turn-based slasher. Even in comparison to other similar games like already mentioned Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter Nights, Modern Pillars of Eternity, Icewind Dale picked more simplified approach to storytelling and dialogues in general. What kind of emotional delivery or type of writing would you expect from 6 generated characters? Among all the time this game requires to complete it, on average it could take from 10 up to 40 hours, you will spend reading dialogues at most 2 or 3 hours. All you really can do is ask additional questions like why so, what was next, and so on. Couple of times you are able to avoid the combat. On the other hand, dialogues themselves not a bland grey mix of sentences. Your responses depend on your personality alignment. Evil characters, for example, tend to, well, be evil, yeah, and sometimes can even bully people. Sarcasm, irony and jokes not rare to local dialogues. But of course, it's not enough to fill this emotional gap. I personally prefer more classical RPGs. What can I say in the end? Can I recommend to play the mobile version? Most likely not. It's not the intended Icewind Dale experience that you need to play through. Game is playable, but if you never tried it before, I hardly advise you to play the PC version first. If you did play this game already and want to relive it again, then go at it. You'll receive a lot of hours of straight gameplay, one of the best RPGs ever. Can I recommend to play Enhanced Edition regardless of the platform? More yes than no. Downsides are not that critical, to be honest, and there is more good stuff in it.